Thanks very much. Ms. Kleinberg, in providing us with briefing on this bill this week, you described some requirements that the federal government has included in this bill, and you detailed the two different types of assisted dying. First of all, euthanasia, where lethal injection would be administered by a medical practitioner, and secondly, medical-assisted suicide, where a prescription written by a medical practitioner, and then the patient would administer that particular, they would take that prescription medication themselves. So for the euthanasia situation, the Liberal government bill indicates that the doctor or nurse practitioner in this bill would determine the patient consent initially, and then they would have to reconfirm that consent right before that doctor or nurse practitioner would administer that lethal injection. But for assisted suicide, the patient would be provided, the determination of the patient consent would be determined initially when they're given the prescription, and then it's possible that the patient could keep that prescription without using it for, 3 years. So there's no requirement to redetermine consent. And given that, I put it to you that this arrangement basically does provide Canada with advance request or advance directive. And in a situation that could so drastically change, where we're dealing with very vulnerable people who could be harmed, potentially killed, no one may ever know about those circumstances, why would such a wide open situation be allowed contrary to the government's intent voiced in the preamble that advance directives would not be allowed under this legislation?
Okay, there's several aspects to that question, so I'll do my best to answer them. First, in terms of the ability of a person to obtain a prescription for the purposes of self-administering a substance to cause their own death, it is still the person who, when the time comes, would be self-administering the substance. They would have to have some degree of ability to do that for themselves, so it's still their choice when they take that action to do it. So in that sense, it's not an advanced request in the way in which that term is used when we're talking about advance directives. So the patient is still the one responsible for taking the action. They take the action at a later point than the point at which they've received the substance, but it's still their choice at every step of the process. So there's nothing that in their level of ability to make the decision for themselves that changes.